of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So for those not seeing anybody in the Zoom audience quite yet, but if anybody joins us in the remote world of Zoom, there are some uses of chat that we would recommend you pay attention to, and leave your camera and sound off, please. And for those in the room with us, thank you for coming. And if you want to sign in the visitor guest book, you sure can. And if you want to sign up to address the board during a public forum section of the meeting, you can do that by signing in over there by the door. And if you're joining us remotely, use chat to do that. And I actually do have an announcement. Today is Indigenous Peoples Day. And so I worked with Rachel to do a little land acknowledgement. Thought we'd do that tonight since it is, again, Indigenous Peoples Day. So quick statement. We are gathered on the land of the Kalapuya and Molalla people, who today are represented by the tribes of the Grand Ronde, the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians, and the federally recognized tribal nations of Oregon. We offer gratitude to the land itself for those who have stewarded it for generations and for the opportunity to study, learn, work, and be a community on this land. We acknowledge that Indigenous groups are too often relegated to the historical past when in truth, Indigenous people are and will continue to be essential members of this community. We express our respect for all the Indigenous people and the important connections they have to their homelands across Oregon and throughout the world. We encourage guests to learn more about the land you reside on. Any other announcements? Right. Thank you. Moving on to presentations, and we have JFK leadership first. You want to introduce yourself and dive right in?
Hi, I'm Julieta, and I am senior class president, and I am representing leadership today. So I have a few different things to say, which include mostly just updates and just summaries of things that have been going around the school. So first, we just had Oktoberfest weekend, and we had very active participation from students, which is very successful. And we also just had homecoming and our homecoming week, which was also very successful with active participation and helped bring back that energy that we were talking about at that last meeting. And also seniors have been getting extra aid with plans after high school, which was important because it kind of lacked some last year. But this year we have been getting a lot. We've been going, universities have been visiting us, and we just went to a college fair today. Also, with Spanish Heritage Month being last month, we also made sure students felt recognized with the help of Erica and members of a club called Teen Advisory Board. And with some sport updates, on Thursday is our girls' senior night, which is our last home game before they go to playoffs. And they have grown a lot since last year's program. And they've had 6 wins, which is a lot more than they had last year. And then we have our soccer, and we had the first official win in the Kennedy program a few weeks ago. And both programs are still continuing to grow, both by talent-wise and by amount. And football has been doing amazing as we've been winning all games, and we're currently #1 in OSSA and 3A. And cross country has also been doing amazing, and our cheer program is continuing to grow. Any questions?
Who is named homecoming queen?
I was named homecoming queen, and Nick was named homecoming king. Yes, congratulations.
Any other questions or comments? I hear Powerpuff was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was a little aggressive.
What happened? You guys, you all get competitive.
Yeah, but it was fun. It's the one time a year we do it. So
Well, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Great update. And the agenda, I think, is good as is. If someone wants to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Second. Oh, I'll give it to Mark. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. And consent items, you'll notice in red, we have a new hire, and we had a resignation that was pulled back. So that's the consent item. Does anybody have anything that they would like pulled from the consent agenda before we Move ahead. Okay, I'll field a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to reports. And I'm dealing with allergies, I think, so if I sneeze, I just felt one coming on, but it went away, so just warning y'all. Report licensed and classified representative reports. Do we have anybody here who wants to make a report? Okay, moving on to administrator reports. Like, say, areas it's first.
We even sat in order today. Oh,
But they're probably in order.
okay. Okay, perfect. So you may notice that we have a new format to our reports. So there's more text, and I'm not going to read all of it for you because I felt like there's more space now. I can add more details, but I'm always open to hearing more questions or anything as well. Feel free to email. So under academic excellence, that area, we have spent the last month completing our universal screening in reading and math using EasyCBM. We do that benchmark testing 3 times a year. And then we also do additional progress monitoring for the students that are far below grade level. We have also begun our Tier 3, which is like intensive remediation support in reading and math. For the students that are falling below that 10th percentile on EasyCBM, we know they need support right away and we don't want to wait. So once we completed our testing, we were able to get those started. And most of those groups are up and running now. There's a couple that are not, and we're just digging a little deeper to find, specific skills that we can work on to help them kind of bridge that gap and help support their access to their grade level content. Let's see here, under thriving students, we are really working to develop leadership across all of our students. And in the past, we've had specific students that were selected to leadership roles, and we really thought that wasn't meeting the needs of all of our learners. We feel like some of our students really do see themselves as leaders, and others really need a little bit of a nudge and some experience to do so. So we're trying to build leadership across the entire 5th grade, giving them different opportunities to be able to demonstrate their leadership. So putting them into some type of leadership roles where they're the mentor to some of our younger students. We have 5th grade readers who are helping with some of our younger kiddos. And then Cameron Thompson and the 5th grade, other 5th grade teacher have started our weekly announcements called the Eagle News. They're video announcements, and they video record those each Tuesday, and then they send them out to the whole staff so they can show them in class Wednesday morning. It has been phenomenal so far. Just, they're hysterical. And I think it was last week, they had a 4th grade field trip, like call in to the show. And they interviewed them while they were on their field trip. It was so great. So, again, just giving different opportunities, but all of the 5th graders will be able to be announcers on that at some point throughout the year. So again, just looking for those opportunities to help kiddos see themselves as leaders. And engaging family and community partnerships. We've got a couple of things coming up. Obviously this week, we're having goal setting conferences where teachers are working with students to help them identify goals that they can work on this year. And they'll be able to talk with families about that, sort of kicking the year off kind of in a positive direction. And that's a really important process. We also have the fun run coming up, which is next week. We've set a goal of raising $12,000. We keep getting near it, but not quite hitting that. So that is our goal for this year. As you know, this helps to pay for all of our field trips, assemblies, after school opportunities. There's lots of opportunities we're able to provide as a result. And actually just this week, we were notified Chelsea Goen, who is our intervention specialist this year, had applied for a a scholarship to be able to bring in OMSI's planetarium exhibit to the school in conjunction with our reading program, read at home program. She was able to bring that in, and they actually notified us this week it will be entirely free. And that's amazing. That's a big benefit to us, and then allows us to use our funds for other things. So we'll be bringing that in, I think, the second week in November, sort of to culminate that read at home opportunity. So that's exciting. And then last but not least, safe schools and departments. We're really working continually on making sure that our school looks more welcoming and inviting all around. You know, we've kind of looked through the office. It had seen some COVID times and needed some fresh makeovers. So, you know, we've done a few things to just brighten up the entryway, painted a wall in the office, moved some things around just to make it more welcoming, inviting to families. We also are working on our positive behavior intervention supports, you know, PBIS, working with our classified staff over the last month to really help them understand why we're leading with positive recognition versus a list of consequences for kiddos, just the benefit and the research behind that. And then, you know, helping them learn how that works in their role. And then, of course, we had an equity training on the Oktoberfest half day, which was called the Kaleidoscope Project. And that was for all of our staff. It was really well received. So I look forward to continuing that work with our staff this year. Any questions?
Not seeing any.
Sounds like a good, exciting start to the school.
We're going 90 miles an hour. All right.
So I want to report back on something I'm very passionate about, and that's attendance. Because in order to teach kids, they need to be present. So we've spent time with PBIS, we've spent phone calling time, we've spent home visit time. And I want to share with you that we have had since the beginning of the year, 94% attendance in middle school. So that includes excused, so those that have legitimate excuses there. So 94% attendance. In the past, that has been at the middle school somewhere in the 88%. So we had a pretty significant uptick with that. So plan the plan, work the plan. So that's our objective. So our second thing that in the academics area is we really want to focus on math. As we saw in the superintendent's presentation in the last couple of months, we've got a little bit of work to do there. So we've been identifying the essential skills the kids need, the baseline skills the kids need. And we'll be working in the months of October and November to make sure that every kid has those baseline skills for them to be successful there. And again, plan the plan, work the plan, identify what are the skills you need, when are you going to teach them, how are you going to teach them, and make sure every kid has those skills. When we talk about the 5, they're very simple. Brennan was in a math science class the other day. Simple things like, do you know your multiplication tables? COVID has caused some problems and we have some gaps and we need to fix them. And we cannot pass kids up to the high school that do not have these essential skills in math. So that's October and November, just like attendance. We'll just plan the plan, work the plan. We also have done an equity session with the staff called the Kaleidoscope Project. Equity is an interesting question. A lot of people have different perspectives on what that means. And we really were able to dig in a little bit on some of our biases and what that looks like, what that feels like. So that was a great opportunity for us to do that. Switching gears, we have added an additional piece. We now have cheerleading at the middle school level. They were at our last football game. They did a phenomenal job. I think we've got 7 or 8 young ladies that are doing terrifically well. One other item. Let's check. Oh, just a reminder that Hispanic month is actually the 15th to the 15th. And the reason it starts at the 15th is that many of the national days for many of our Hispanic countries have their national celebrations on the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th. And that really kicks off that month. So we had an opportunity to build a display, writers, politicians, comedians, and other leaders in the Latino community, and provide that display with the books that they have either written or books that have been written about them, so that kids can see themselves in literature and can see themselves in leaders as well. That's what I have for you tonight.
Questions, comments? 94%.
94.38.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I have we've got a lot on here, and I'm going to highlight a couple things. We're not quite at 94%, darn you, Jeff. But the high school, when I checked this morning, was at 92%. So that's also a significant increase from last year and in previous years. So I think about the pandemic and what toll that looked like for us. I went back to pre-pandemic, and this time of the year, we were about 88%, 87%, right around in that area. So to be up 92% was a cause for celebration. So I think that's great. Priority one, we've truly committed to the PLC process. You kind of heard this from Jeff, of our staff spending Wednesday mornings determining what their essential standards are, aligning learning targets to those essential standards, and creating assessment questions that go along with those, that are aligned to those, as well as creating the timelines of when we're going to give those and when we're going to analyze the data to determine what the next steps will be, whether that be, okay, we're going to have to do a little bit of reteaching, or can we move forward? I'll be working with my staff Wednesday morning. I'm not sure exactly how many people have done the second standard, to see where they're at, if they've analyzed their data yet, to see if they're going to reteach or move forward. We've got to continue to think about building in time during the school day, during class time, to make sure that, you heard Jeff say this, that all kids are getting what they need to get. All kids, not just a handful, not just some, okay? Another highlight is we will be map testing again, which is fantastic, because we need to determine where our kids are right now. You also heard from Jeff, the pandemic has played a big role in where we are as well, not just as a society, right? And right now we're seeing lots of learning loss. I heard from a teacher just the other day saying he's having to go back and reteach things that he's never taught at that grade level before in math. And I'm like, well, I appreciate you doing that, because kids can't move forward, as you heard Jeff say, if they don't have the fundamental skills to be able to do so. So it's great to see staff actually thinking about, I can't teach this until I teach this, until I know this. So that was great. Our kids will take the map tests, reading and math, in the fall, probably in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll take it again in the spring, so we can determine growth between where they are now to where they are in the springtime. We will then give it again in the fall, so that it really gives you that year-to-year growth trends, if you will. Our guiding coalition continues to meet on a weekly basis, implementing our RTI plan, as well as our continuous improvement plan. The second part is thriving students. I'm sure you might be hearing from Ms. Gordon on this one, but this is something that's near and dear to my heart as well. Is our teen advisory board continues to meet on a monthly basis to discuss the important issues that they have, which I think is awesome, and Leah is part of that. As you heard earlier to talk about, they created the National Hispanic Heritage Month display just outside the office, which was awesome. And there's also a 6-slide presentation that rolls over on our monitor. So I think it's really cool to see that. We have Miss Brooks, who's supporting our students since the school year began with all things related to SEL. She came from down here up to the high school, and she's also doing a wonderful job as coaching our volleyball team. And as you heard from Julieta, Ms. Mraz is doing wonderful things with our senior kids, and not only senior kids, but also juniors. We had some juniors that went up to the college fair today. And I asked a couple of the kids when they came back, and how wasn't it? It was awesome. It was overwhelming, but it was awesome. So that was great to hear that. Priority 3, engaging families and communities. You've heard from folks before about this, but I want to call her out. Teresa Murphy's been doing a wonderful job. In fact, she's sitting out in front of the school right now until 7 o'clock, handing out food boxes tonight. But in addition to that, she's also created kind of a clothing counter downstairs too for families who need some clothing. And so if you've got some things laying around that you don't wear that are in good condition, you might want to contact her and she can get those from the closet. Gosh, we have conferences right around the corner, Wednesday and Thursday. So we've got that happening. And the last part, our safe schools and departments. You heard Jeff talk about this too, about the Kaleidoscope project that focuses on equity and inclusion. This is, I think this is the first time that I know this is the first time JFK has gone through something like this, and it created a lot of conversation. And it was a good conversation. So I think that was one of the things that we looked at. We couldn't finish it in a 2-hour session. So we had to go back the next Wednesday and finish up the things that we needed to because the conversation was so good. So I'm so proud of my staff for diving in deep, asking the tough questions and moving forward. So lots and lots of things happening at JFK. As you heard, homecoming just finished. It's nice to be able to kind of get the first month of school done because there's a lot of things that are packed into that first month of school. So we're excited about that. And again, 92% attendance. We're pretty excited about that.
Where was the college fair at?
Here's in Portland. So we had 38, was it Julieta? Around 38?
I think so, yeah.
38 that went up this morning. We had 3 staff that went with them.
Where at?
You remember where was that?
It was by the Ford Center. I don't know where it was exactly, but it was in this hotel.
And it's come a lot earlier. Normally it's in November. So this year it came a little bit earlier. So we had to scramble to get some things put in place. And I can't thank Sue Brower enough to get somebody to drive the bus up there. And these kids they had a great job. Had a great time doing it.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Peterson? Thank you.
Thank you.
Erica, last but not least.
Okay, well, now that I acquire all the information.
I'm getting it.
So today is also World Mental Health Day. So I didn't want to say it after because I don't want to take away from Indigenous Peoples' Day, which is also incredibly important. You know, we've done a lot of work in our district around mental health and destigmatizing that. And also with the addition of being able to text a 3-digit number, 988, I wanted to make sure that we put a plug in there for World Mental Health Day. And I feel like you should be co-presenting with me, Julieta. Julieta, who's like incredibly humble, is the leader of like all the things. She was actually on Teen Advisory Board before the pandemic. So when she was like an itty-bitty freshman, she was part of Teen Advisory Board, and now she's very much a leader, and she's a leader in lots of other aspects at JFK, as I'm sure you all know. So Teen Advisory Board is something that I lead because the school is involved in the PLC process on Wednesday mornings. And so it's a time that I can carve out to meet with students on some other leadership opportunities. And so this is a way that we can elevate student voice and incorporate it into some decision-making opportunities in the district. And actually Sherry's son was a part of it a few years ago. He was one of the pioneering people of that group. And it was very much mental health focused at that time. And it was actually really pivotal in JFK adopting curriculum, not like formally adopting, but really bringing in curriculum so that there would be direct instruction in social emotional learning. It was by student voice that then the board was like, oh, the students are asking for this, maybe we should take it seriously. So it was really cool to see the evolution of that. Then it was a little hard to meet, right, virtually. But we started meeting again in the spring of last year. And now we're back having, I mean, like to say we're super serious. We're not always super serious. We're a little more casual on, donuts and banana bread and all that stuff on a Wednesday morning. But we've decided that the focus is still very heavy on mental health. There's still a few things as far as them wanting to be more advising, because we're not a decision-making group. That obviously is the guiding coalition, but we certainly have some things that maybe they want me to take forward to Mr. Peterson. Last year, they had some ideas around the bell schedule and some ideas around advisory. And so they might put together some formal advisement to then take forward to leadership. And so that's what teen advisory is about. And then they have 2 people per grade level. Really, really cool. And also wanting to make sure that they're representative of the student body population, which sometimes the leadership class isn't necessarily going to be representative of that. So keeping in mind that we have equal representation of voice in that. So just want to put that out there since we have that. One of the things that was really important to them was Hispanic Heritage Month, which you've heard a bit about. But a few things that they made happen was that where the board was, and it was really only a supervision issue when it was, but they wanted to make sure that there was more of a presence. And I'm really excited for this district because this is really the first time that Hispanic Heritage Month has really even been acknowledged. So after TAB last month, we were like, all right. So we just took it all down and Mr. Peterson was like, go for it. And we made it front and center and we put together some slides. And so the TV that's right there in the main hall, they have, rotating with different things. And so I love their just like get her done attitude. So, so that's awesome. Middle school already had one up and running. And so for me, as somebody who's been here for a long time, sometimes it's hard to be like in the day-to-day, that like it's being parents, right? It's just like, the day-to-day. But as you look back and see the growth, it's really exciting, right? So I think that's a really huge celebration. If you could skip ahead to the one that says family engagement, only because we're like on this topic. So we had family movie night. Did anybody go to family movie night on Friday? Okay, so 2 things have happened. Friday, we had family movie night, which was open to everybody. We showed Encanto, but we before we showed it, everybody had a little piece of paper. It's like their passport. And since Encanto is set in Colombia, we had different stations. So they would take their little passport and like go over here and learn something and like get their passport stamped and then go over here and learn something and get their passport, it's like go along. And in Colombia, they have this like afternoon or evening time called onces, which is basically like cheese and crackers and hot chocolate. I mean, who doesn't like hot chocolate and carbs? So we provide that. And then kids brought blankets or whatever they wanted or something they could just lay on the floor. And then parents had chairs, popcorn, and whatever. We had over 100 people show up. So
That's awesome.
I know. We partnered with the library. And so the library was able to get licensing for us. So it didn't cost us much.
Quick question. How is the date selected? Is it
I know it was
like a homecoming? I was just like, trying to be in 2 places at once. And I know that our family wasn't the only one, so I didn't know if
Yeah.
it was stuff at the library or.
So it was set because we wanted to do it during Hispanic Heritage Month. And we couldn't do it like next week because of like no school and so forth. So we were kind of left with that. And we were hoping that generally speaking, we might hit 2 different populations, but I know it wasn't gonna be perfect for everybody. But hopefully we can plan better next time. yeah, I know it wasn't gonna be perfect for everybody. And then the week before, at the beginning, so we do Unidos, which is specifically for our English language learner population, and that's because of how it is paid. So the difference between the two is that this was open for anybody, and this is specifically for English language learner families because of how it's paid for. And we're going with a different strategy the last year, is that we're doing fewer meetings, but doing them like hopefully bigger, better, to try to focus more on the relational capacity part of it. And we have 5 people in attendance. So that's like really amazing and awesome. And again, like Dale said, Teresa Murphy is like magic, and I want to like bottle her up and shake it and spread it around. She's just fantastic. So I'll get into like more boring stuff because I do a lot of.
Was the Unidos, was that the Encanto movie as well?
No, that was separate. That was the week before. Yeah, no, her role is very much around trying to engage the community to hopefully, you know, increase attendance. Okay, I'm really sorry. Can you go back? So, community eligibility update meal program. Next slide. So this is what we have as of, well, whenever I submitted this last week. This is the 3 different ways that people qualify for the free reduced meal program. They can qualify under the federal well, the federal, you know, free reduced guidelines, which the bar is pretty high, right? So 39% of our families qualified for that. And then what, if you remember, so last year, everybody qualified. And so Oregon created their own, I'm seeing a table, right? So their own table, their own guidelines to say, okay, well, to kind of soften the blow of you having to pay for meals, we are going to create our own guidelines that are somewhere in between everybody qualifies and more people qualify, right? So that's called the Oregon Expanded Guidelines. And so, and with that, an additional on top of the federal, so an additional 35.5% of the district qualified. And then we have about 25% of our district qualifies through direct certification, which is our students who are homeless, migrant, foster care. That's where the state just directly certifies them. So they wouldn't necessarily even need to fill out an application. They just get directly certified. Okay. And if you want to see this broken down by school, that's kind of where they're at. Okay, so what does this mean for, this is just like, remember, we're like, okay, we want to know kind of like where we're at. So next slide. So important things to know as I talk to Stacy and Eva is that we may not have all of our applications in yet because last year's eligibility actually carries through until October 15th. So we could still be getting more, but only the direct certifications count towards the community eligibility, which is at 25%. I did not put it on here. Stacy said that you need 48 to 50% in order to be considered for community eligibility, which seems like super high to me. But I know that we're still working through, you know, some registrations. So we'll see. At least we know our baseline. At least we kind of know where we're at. And so she's feeling like by the end of this month,
she'll have a good understanding of what our true like numbers are, so then she can work with the state to see like, okay, well, this is where we're at. Is it really just the direct certification? Are there other numbers that can be considered? I know that the Oregon expanded won't work, but could the federal ones? You know, be
Erica, what's in
considered?
it for us if we meet that 40 or 50%?
Well, I mean, the initial benefit is everybody gets.
Okay, that wasn't stated before, so
Yes.
that's important. Thank you.
Yes.
Is your federal, like, title services, attached to your food things?
No.
No? So, so what is the general percentage as of now? 25% qualify or? I know there's a lot of numbers and I wasn't.
No,
following all
so
the
if you go
numbers.
back a slide. We have these, all of these kids are getting free lunch. They
Okay.
just qualified under a different way.
So is our total
Our total-
74.6
Yeah,
federal and
Okay, that,
expanded?
okay.
no, all of these.
So 74.6% of our kids qualify
if you-
for free and reduced.
Okay, go back.
Yes,
99%.
This way?
that's what I.
No, go back. Sorry.
I know, you got all
Yeah,
that.
hopefully it's 99%.
14.7% of the families who completed an application did not qualify.
So is that out of 100%?
If you add all those three, Erica, it adds up to 99.
Oh, yeah, that was like all of the, sorry.
So
I had to guess it's probably the federal and the Oregon expanded.
So I can tell you that there are 98 out of 667 currently who pay for meals.
So what percentage is
And
that?
how many?
I don't know, I don't have.
And how many?
Clarify what you just said, 90,
90?
98 students out of 667 who pay for meals.
667.
Okay.
so only 100 students in the whole district are paying for them.
So we're at
So but
85.
we would be at more than, we would be at more than 48 to 50%.
Right,
Which
we
you
are.
But not the direct certification.
But it's the direct certification. That's,
So if we reach that level of direct certification, then the entire school district gets free lunch. Okay, thank you.
that's my understanding right now.
Another question is, how many families have not filled that out?
But I have 667 students who have,
That means every family is filled out the applications? If we have, no. So how many, like, how
I
many?
don't know what our total enrollment is.
Because they're cool, it's right around there.
So
So-
I would imagine that's pretty close. I can't imagine we have too many more students than that. So.
Not everybody's filled it out. Right.
Okay.
So I think. We're trying to first start with who hasn't filled it out, get 100% filling it out. So
That's our goal, but again, it's highly confidential. And we can't like call those families,
that haven't filled it out.
because I mean, that's,
Eric,
I don't even know who has or hasn't filled it out. I just have,
There's one person in the district that does, right?
There has to be.
there's one person who knows who fills them out, but again, it's just to like process it. It's not to like keep track of who has or hasn't and what their status is.
can you just clarify, what did the direct certification, what categories lead to that?
So what I do know is homeless, migrant, foster, because like I deal with that. Other than that, I don't know.
Other categories that fall into that we don't know about?
I'm sure there are. I did this while I was like in a conference last week, so I can get you like all of that information. Once this is like all settled, I just know that this was kind of like hot on your minds, and so I wanted to give you an update. But I know they're directly certified from the state, so it wouldn't matter if they fill out an application here or not.
But only that counts towards the CDP.
That's what Stacy told me. Yes, I think that sounds a little odd,
So it doesn't make,
considering like Salem Kaiser gets CEP now apparently, so.
yes, the whole district.
Right.
Whether
So-
you're in West Salem or what, yeah.
Right. I think that's a lot of foster children.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, something.
So these are the numbers that we know. So more to be unfolded next board meeting. How's that?
Yeah, let's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah.
okay, okay. Oh boy, this is gonna be another hot topic. Newcomers, we got a lot of them. A lot of them. So if you don't know what a newcomer is.
Yes, we do.
Do you know what a newcomer is? I think everyone in this room does. So we have many students who are newly arrived to the US. And they don't know any English. And they are in every single building. And we have 19 of them. Previous years, 302. And I can tell you that that's my 9 years between 0 and 2. We have 19 and it's October 10th.
Do we know why?
No, tell me.
Do you have a breakdown of? the
Have I broken down yet?
No, there's no reason to break down. No, English language learners are quick learners. So how many are at the high school level, middle school, and elementary level? That's important to know.
They are mostly at the high school.
Okay,
There's a couple at the middle school.
okay,
And then there's about 5-ish at the elementary school. It's also interesting because they aren't necessarily all like newcomers where we're just working on transference. We have 5 that I can think of off the top of my head who have severely interrupted formal education. So we're not just working on transference, we're actually dealing with students who are about 6th grade levels behind in their native language as well. It's a big deal. So break down.
It
Fun and, yeah.
Lovely children.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful children. But
absolutely.
for a small district to figure out how to support our staff and our students to be successful, it's just something that we haven't done before. Right? So it's so that's actually the next, if you go to the next slide. For those of you who don't speak ELL, SIFE is severely interrupted formal education. So this means they come from a home where language other than English is spoken and they enter after grade 2. They have had at least 2 years less schooling than their peers, function at least 2 years below expected grade level, and they may be pre-literate in their native language. So this is complicating our current situation. So like Irene was saying, newcomers are great, right? They take off super quick. We had some students from Brazil a few years ago, spoke Portuguese, but man, in a year and a half, it was like, they're amazing, right? They're amazing learners. But we have students who aren't even necessarily literate in their own language. And so that's a whole different profile of student, especially when you're talking about at the secondary level. So already the gap is like huge. So next slide. I don't have answers. But I just need you guys to be aware that we even had, I think, 2 move in last week. So it's like, it's still rocking and rolling. Yes.
Just because we like to use this terminology in education of not reinventing the wheel. Have we reached out to just like larger districts or other small districts saying, hey, are you having this issue? How are you going about this?
So all the surrounding districts so far have actually kicked out my SPED students. So everybody's so full as it is taking care of their own learners. And Salem Kaiser never has taken a student like ever. They don't contract. So,
They're talking like the newcomers though.
no, I know, but I'm just saying they're just at capacity anyway with their own students. People aren't. Like,
But I think her question is, how are they dealing with it?
Yes.
Do they have any?
well, they have their own newcomer programs, right, in larger districts.
Mr. Taylor is somebody that has a lot of proficiency
Yes, he
in
does.
dealing with newcomers, so I'm sure that he could.
Yeah, he's very super smart. Absolutely.
We've got, I think, 7 of our students are newcomers to the high school. And we've done a lot of great stuff with pairing them with peer mentors in their classrooms. We're translated documents, things like that. I was subbing in sophomore English class this morning because we're short on subs. And I had a wonderful time. I had 5 of our out of the 7 young newcomers in that classroom, and they were awesome. We were doing a little worksheet as I was walking around, talking with folks. I was looking at the work they were doing. Most of it was in their native language, answering the questions because the questions were in Spanish. They had more work done in their native language and answering those questions than most of the students in the class. So it was wonderful to see that. That's just one example of what we're doing with our students. And we've been, Teresa Murphy will jump in every once in a while again. That's just something that Teresa does. Will's doing a wonderful job. Jamie Jones is doing a great job with those kids. And they, as Irene, as you said, if I can also say, piggyback on what you said, these are fabulous kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
They're fabulous kids. And I don't know if, Eric, if any of ours at the high school are safe. They maybe
One, you have one,
Yeah.
and you have 2.
they're working so hard.
They're eager to learn.
They're very eager to learn. We had 2 last year and we've got 5 new ones this year. And they're just, it's amazing to see what they're doing. It's a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Especially when you're substitute teaching, you're like, okay, so what are we doing today? Let's figure this out.
Yeah, so I have, people on my team who are strategically placed to support them.
There you go.
But, I think at some point, we're gonna be reaching capacity. And it's just to be putting it on your radar and to let you know that the demographics of our student body has changed, and it's super exciting in a lot of ways, but it also presents a new challenge. So just to be aware, and I've taken up way too much time, but you do have, just to, let you know, if you are on Facebook, you saw this posted, but Esmer Mraz has done an amazing job. She has done more in a couple of weeks and, like 8 years of any counselor that I have seen. She's had the FAFSA night coming up, English and Spanish, different opportunities, and college visits are going. And so I just want to make sure that we acknowledge the great work that's going on.
Will she be bringing in non-college that, like people that?
Yep,
want to
college
trade
and
schools
career.
and all
Yes,
that.
we've talked about all of those things. So yeah, she meets with, most of her day is filled with meeting with students, and she has a way for them to make appointments. She definitely puts it on the onus of the student. So reminds them, sends them out. She has her Calendly link to do that. She has little binders. So every student starts filling up, regardless of what path they want, but to fill in. So if it is college, let's start looking for scholarships, print it off, put it in their binder. If it's practicing job applications, she print those off, and they start doing that there during that appointment. And so she's just keeping everything together for them so they can practice that.
So she's able to do individualized development plans with those students that take the time to make appointments.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So, but if they catch her in the hall and they talk about it, she'll be like, great. make an appointment with me. So, putting that back on them, but she's always available to do that. So she's got a good thing.
I have a question not related to this, but related for the next. Last month, we did a tag thing, and I was just wondering about an update for future on tag.
Yeah, so we have a couple more kids who are like in process.
Because it was such a low number, I
Right.
was just wondering if we could, I know it's not for tonight, but for next month, could we have a tag update and where we're at with that?
Or
Um,
cadence makes sense for periodic updates on
Yeah.
tags.
Well, I
Because
think I
it's so low.
usually give a couple updates a year. There's one that's scheduled, but I usually give a few a year. I can tell you, there's a couple in process. I think the hard part is, we need to have multiple measures, right? So for some kids, we're waiting now.
Yeah,
to
to
get
get like
those.
12 or some, I don't remember
Yes,
exactly the
it is.
number. It was
It's very
like
low.
ridiculously low for a school district.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why
if there's
maybe
something
next month we could
specific
have-
that you would like.
I would just like to know how we're moving along to get more kids to be tagged. I mean, yeah, that to me is like the big
So-
priority.
So we're moving along. This isn't an agenda item. This is
Okay.
about we,
Agenda
about we
items.
know that this is on
For
the
next
radar.
month.
And
Okay.
you and Rachel can maybe work on
Right.
coming up with some form of a report for the board,
Right.
either in November or December,
Right.
whatever the time makes sense. Is that okay?
It is, I'm confused by the request of get more kids, because if kids don't qualify, then they don't qualify, so maybe we
So
can.
maybe clear about,
If I could outline the process
Maybe-
perhaps,
maybe
instead
I
of get
can-
more kids.
Excuse me, maybe I said it wrong. I thought that it was a low number for a school district of over 600 and to have 12 students. Perhaps looking at the testing or the process of how we qualify students and how we look at their tag IEPs and stuff and, with their multiple.
I'm happy to
measures.
review our process.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks.
thank you. Okay, and moving on to budget.
Alrighty,
Christie.
so first I'll go over these two reports and then I have a couple other things to share. So this is our financial report for food services, like normal. This is kind of our first, September's our first normal month, so to speak. So you can see that we're starting now to see what amount of paid meals we're gonna get from our families that are paying. And then the reimbursement, I checked with Eva, that's a normal amount. The first reimbursement will not come until this month or the end of this month for September. So that's not a projection, so to speak, of what we're gonna be looking at going forward. So we don't really know what that's gonna look like yet, because it's not gonna be the way it was before. We don't get as much money for per meal for the folks who are in like the expanded income guidelines from the state. We don't get as much money per meal for those students as we would for somebody who qualifies under the federal program, if that makes sense.
The reimbursement rate is higher.
Correct, yeah. So to next month, should give us a clearer picture of that. So you can see our revenues for September was 14,960. And our expenses, again, mostly salaries and benefits. And then some food supplies. And so our total expenses was 31,631. That's gonna be, except for like the food and supplies changing here and there, that salaries and benefits is gonna stay pretty consistent. I foresee for the rest of the year. So right now we're about 98% to goal for trends for salaries and benefits, 84% to goal. So all in all, we're tracking about 81% to goal on expenditures and a month-end fund balance of $41,086, which again is pretty typical for us. Any questions on this document? Okay. And then general fund. So, taxes, we don't get any current year taxes quite yet in September, just a little bit in prior year. Again, our interest revenue, so excited, keeps going up. Got another email today from the state saying it's going up. The percentage is going up again, so we're trying to keep as much money in the LGIP as possible, try to really get as much interest as possible. And then that 24,000 for local income, that was some heavy equipment rental tax that comes in with our county taxes, as well as oh my gosh, I'm totally drawing a blank. Lumen, it's Lumen lighting refund with quite a bit of money from that. This doesn't really help us a whole lot because it just ends up coming out of the state school fund because it's considered local revenue. But when you see our state school fund change later on, that's why. And then state school fund 566,960, that's what our projection is for the rest of the year as of right now. And we'll talk a little bit more when I'm done with this about what we're projecting the state school fund to do for the rest of the year. And no other revenue this month. So our total revenue for the month was 596,296. And we're trending right now, based on everything, about 96% to goal. And then expenditures, again, salaries and benefits took up the most of our expenditures for the month. Salaries is a little bit higher than what we'll see for the rest of the year, or on a normal month, I should say, because we pay out a lot of stipends in September. And so that's a little bit higher. As you can see, I'm projecting in between the 330, 340 range for salaries. And then benefits, and then obviously we have some supplies. So our total expenditures for the month was $666,049, and we're trending about 91% to goal and expenditures. But that's I really kind of estimated high on a lot of these categories just to be conservative. So right now we're looking at a month-end fund balance of about 450,000. Any questions on this? Okay. And so here, oops, is the rest of my report. I wanted to give you guys a background or a recap of the Doughboy booth. I am so glad that it's behind us for the year, but it was very successful. So that's at least exciting for all the hard work that everybody put in. We had 12 shift chairs, and those folks, they give up a huge portion of their day during the festival to help manage volunteers and manage the process. Not to mention before the festival by gathering volunteers and attending meetings and stuff. And so we had district employees doing that. We had a board member, thank you, Andy, as well as parents. We had over 120 volunteers who worked in the booth over 65 hours. And that is just during the festival that this many people helped pitch in to make this successful. That included all the building admins, we had board members, employees, parents, and students, and even some community members who had kids here in the past. It was still important for them to, help out. So very cool. Again, this doesn't count the hours of, facilities moving things down on Wednesday night and bringing it back up, and the other volunteers who helped make this work. But that's a huge representation of our group. So how much did we raise? We grossed about $34,000, which is about $10,000 more than our highest gross that we've had. So that's great. Expenses, we're still working that out. We finally got the bill today for flour. It did double. I mean, it's not double a lot, but it did double. So expenses did go up, but we're still going to net, more than what we have in the past, which is so. Where's the money going? So each school receives some proceeds. When I was getting desperate towards the end for volunteers, I was trying to find people, and we had some folks from our ELL program who offered to help. And so they actually are going to get a contribution to their kind of fund where they can use it to buy clothes and shoes and supplies for kids that we don't really have a budget for. And they're super excited about that. They even had some students from that program that they built relationships with come in and help during that shift. So it was a good opportunity for them. So that was very successful. And there are some repairs for the booth that we're gonna have to decide what we want to do.
Other than Band-Aid and duct tape.
Right, yeah, we need a new roof, we need a new floor, and we need a new mixer. All very expensive things. All very crucial things to make a good house. So, we do have some funds that we'll be able to do that, but it's just trying to figure out, the right way to do it, and the best way to do it. So, any questions about the Nova booth at all?
No questions, just a comment, Chrissy, super stressful for you, I know, you did great.
Thank you.
Like, first year, you did fabulous, took a lot of extra stuff on, and yeah, you did great. I know you're really happy it's over with. There's a lot of problems, I woke her up one day, Chrissy, I don't know, I have a question. So,
I would echo that. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
And that the whole other duties is assigned. You know, people come in a lot of different ways and manners.
Yeah, yeah. So, but like I said, the best part is that we raise, I mean, it feels good at the end when you see how much money we've raised and can put back in the schools for our kids and. So anyways. Okay, so ADM and state school fund update. So average daily membership, we have seen obviously an increase in kids. And so automatically people think, oh, money, we have more money. And so I think it's important for everybody to understand like where we projected, where we see ourselves right now and what this means, for the future over the next few months. So what we projected. So if you remember when we did the budget, we made assumptions that we would have all of our current students moving up one grade. So we had a small senior class leaving, and then, replacing it with a little bit bigger of a kindergarten class. So 45 incoming kinders, and we assumed that we would get 10 new students. So when we did that budget, you can see the state school fund budget was 6.8 million. And when it was all said and done, once the state kind of rebalanced, recalculated the state school fund, we started off with an actual state school fund of a little less than what we budgeted, about 13,000, but pretty darn close. And the difference there is when it's all said and done, they look at the total enrollment that everybody projected and local income and revenue, and then they make a new calculation. And so our per student just changed across the whole state. And so 13,000, that's doable. And so over here on the left-hand side, you can see, again, what we projected for ADMW with our weights was 861.89. And so that's what our budget is based on here. Any questions on this slide? All right. So where we are today. So as of the 4th, we have an enrollment number of 656.11. And so I plug that into this little calculator here to see what does that equal to state school fund. And so most of the things stay the same, as our ELLs went up. So we did conservatively move that number up. And then everything else pretty much stayed the same. So our extended ADMW that we're projecting as of right now is 878.2. So from 861.89 to 878.2 is kind of where we think we're at right now, conservatively. So based on all of that, keeping everything else the same, we're looking at about $140,000 more as of right now that we would get in state school fund than what we budgeted for. But much better than this conversation that we had last year. Any questions on this page? Okay. So what's next? So in October, towards the end of October, districts can ask to reopen the estimate of membership and revenues collection. And this is the collection that we used in the spring to have them, the state school fund calculated initially through the state. Everybody puts their information in, and then they take that information and figure out their own calculation of what we would get. And then in November or December, the ODE recalculates the state school fund based on that updated information. So if you remember last year, we did, our per student went up a little bit because the overall state enrollment went down. So we still got more per student. So it kind of lessened the blow a little bit for us, which was good. But what this means for us is that when this recalculates, it can positively or negatively impact us depending on how the other districts initially estimated and what changes were made when the collection was reopened. So for example, if the majority of the districts estimated low, and then they all had this influx of people like we did, then we're not going to see that $140,000 increase like what we're projecting right now, because it's going to be spread over more people. Other thing is, or on the other side is, if everybody kind of projected pretty close to what they are, and then when the collection gets reopened, there's not a huge change, then we could see, you know, more of an impact, you know, closer to that 140,000. So we don't really know what that's going to look like probably until November or December, when the whole state puts their information in. And honestly, I have not heard from other business managers what's going on out there. You know, last year everybody was very chatty about it because they were all in the same boat in terms of panicking because enrollment was not what they thought it was going to be, and we were all hurting. But people aren't as quite as chatty, it seems like, this year about like what's going to happen. So anyways, any questions on this at all? Okay. So that's all I got. I just thought it was important. I do this calculation every month to kind of see like what's going on. And I just felt like it was important because I hear, you know, things out there about, oh, we have all these extra kids, you know, we got to have all this extra money, and it doesn't necessarily correlate. And even if it does right now, we just don't know what it's going to look like, you know, in a few months. I mean, fingers crossed it's good. And again, it's exciting to be on the other side of the calculation rather than where we were last year, but still not out of the woods yet.
Can you remind me of the timing of when, as the money comes in from the state, when, like, let's say the November calculations are done, and then we do end up getting, let's say, an extra 100,000 for the year, when will that money start?
I want to say last year it was either December or January, and they take that and they spread it out over the rest of the year.
Okay.
And they'll do another recalculation even in the spring. So our state school fund, I think last year changed at least 3 or 4 times.
Always a moving target.
Yes, yeah, and in the all in the end of things, you know, if we end up not getting the full amount this year, it gets reconciled next year as well. So we will get it eventually, but the key is to try to get it as close as possible so we can get the maximum we can now without having to owe later. So that felt a little balance. So
I always appreciate your explanations. They make sense to me. I just appreciate it.
yeah.
Any questions or comments?
Regardless, great news.
Yeah.
It's back or
Yes.
it's in the district.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yes.
Yes, that's the trend we were.
Yes. Hoping for.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Christine. Right, superintendent's report.
Thank you. Well, good evening, Chair Reedman and members of the board. Tonight, several topics to discuss with you. Student enrollment, transfers in and out, and our current enrollment. Our annual transportation report. State assessment results that have now been verified. Leads Student Award for Excellence. Strategic plan goal setting update. And then finally, a focus in on strategic plan priority areas 1 and 3. So starting tonight with transfers out of Mount Angel, we had 4 more students that went virtual, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we lost them from here. Sometimes these papers go in and out and they're students that we never see. But for whatever reason, their address is in Mount Angel. So don't let those numbers necessarily deceive you. Same with private schools. We don't know where that shift happened, but it did. And so those are our numbers out. And we also gained some students who are transferring in from other districts as well as from Silver Falls. Our total enrollment, which is also on the first page of your packet, but just a snapshot here, we're up 1 student over last month. We're at 662, which is good news. We haven't been that high since somewhere between 1920 and 2021. Before I head to the next topic, are there any questions regarding enrollment? Okay. Annual transportation report. We have 14 vehicles that include buses, minibuses, and vans. We are down to 2 AM/PM bus routes due to bus driver shortage. We are transporting 130 students. We are transporting also to Silverton, Woodburn, and Salem for McKinney-Vento, Willamette Career Academy, and Special Services. And hot off the press news, we're purchasing 2 buses, partially funded by a DEQ grant for $95,000. These buses are going to be replaced and they have to be destroyed. That is part of the grant agreement. And the 2 new buses will be delivered to us by September of 2023. So that's our annual bus report.
Is there much expense to destroy a bus, do you know?
I really hope not.
Might even get a little money from salvaging.
Yeah.
You can find someone who will take it.
Yeah, sure.
They have catalytic
I
converters.
put you on the spot,
Yeah.
All right, state assessments. You had a glimpse into this in August with secondary math. Unfortunately, I don't have better news to share with you than I had in August. As far as our results and state assessments, you will see that in the left column is the grade. The bold font is Mount Angel, and what is unbolded is the state. On the right column is the percentage of students who met or exceeded last spring. And in grade 5, grade 7, and grade 11, we either held our own with the state or were above the state average. So that is for math. For English language arts, the same setup, grade on the left, percent meeting exceeding on the right. We fared better in our English language arts scores, grade 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 11, all compared with the state or exceeded state averages. Are there any questions about this? Next month, as part of this, will be coupled with this, we'll do a preview of the state report card for our school district and for our schools, because this data is part of that. Okay. So what's all this talk about the Lead Student Award? What is this about? Well, we'll talk more about that under action items as well. But I think it's really important to honor the fact that we have exceptional students and they deserve to be acknowledged for all that they do for the community, for the school, and for each other. So the Leads Award of Excellence is being established in 5 different areas, one being leadership. So a student's contributions in and for the student body and or the school, and representation of the school at events. Effort, short or long-term improvement in individual practices. It could be attendance, behavior, participation, or grades. Achievement, skills the student represents for the school or demonstrates in the school. Some examples might be fine arts, knowledge, extracurricular activities. Diversity and inclusion, contributions that increase practices of inclusion for all students in the school and the school district. And service, contributions in and for the community and or school. This is a draft of what the award might look like. Have a nice gold seal up in the top right corner. And the intent is to acknowledge these students every month at the board meeting. Are there questions that I can answer about this? Yes.
Is each principal picking like one student out, or they do it like that demonstrates all of these characteristics? Are they,
Could be one,
okay, could be one or could be a couple?
absolutely.
I didn't know if we're doing one for leadership or for effort achievement.
That would be a very long school board
It would be.
meeting. Not that we don't have that many students, because I'm sure we do. But what we're looking at is one student from each school that would demonstrate one or more of those attributes. Other questions? No? Okay. So where are we at as a school district with the strategic plan, continuing to move forward? And I love this quote, and we actually use this concept a lot in our administrative teamwork. One of the great mistakes is to judge policies and programs by their intentions rather than their results. We want to make sure that we are looking at results and we're making our decisions based on results and not good intentions. This is where we are at. The identification of collective commitment measurement points is largely done, and you'll get a chance to see an example of that in just a moment. The SMART goals for all of the collective commitment measurement points are not yet finished, but will be presented at the November board meeting for your consideration. And as you participated in this just 2 weeks ago, the draft board goals have been developed. I wanted to give all of you directors a sense of what the goal setting is going to look like when we bring it to you as an administrative team. Here are some examples of, first, the priority area, which priority area 1 is academic excellence. The commitment, this commitment is offering a wide variety of K-12 pathways for all students. Although this priority area has 4 commitments, this example is just the first one. What's going to get measured? Well, we might be looking at graduation rates, but also disaggregated by groups, subgroups. Percentage of students of color enrolling in advanced classes will more closely represent the racial makeup of district demographics. The percentage of students of color enrolling in Willamette Career Academy programming will more closely represent the racial makeup of district demographics, and increasing opportunities for credit recovery. So those are some measurement points, but what we need to do next is look at how we're going to measure those commitments, not only for this school year, but where we want to be 5 years from now. So this complete package will be presented to you next month. Any questions on the strategic plan? Okay. Well, I'm really excited about this next one because we are already moving forward with a strategic plan, priority areas 1 and 3 with a big project. 1, priority area academic excellence, providing high quality instruction and support to ensure students graduate ready for life, career, and success, especially looking at alternative pathways. And engaging family and community partnerships so that we're extending student learning opportunities through engaged family and community partnerships. So what we're going to be focusing in on our career and technical education and expanding the welding programming for our students. More specifically, we have a proposed project, which is the construction of a welding area that is located away from the shop area where the woodworking is done. Because welding and woodworking are the 2 worst combinations you could probably put together in a CTE. The intent is to establish that community and business partnership for student welding programming. The rationale is, again, to increase our pathways for students who wish to pursue trades upon graduation, and also to expand local business partnerships, which is right there in the strategic plan. And the benefits, there are many. Partner with employees from local businesses, as well as retired professional welders. Establish apprenticeships and work-study programming, optimize opportunities for students to raise funds by selling their own products that they may make, and increasing opportunities for high school students to earn credit. We have some major financial donors that have already committed to this project, one being GEM Equipment, the other Mountain West, fairly significant amounts, and also have received commitment for in-kind and discount donations from Withers Lumber, Taylor Metal Roofing, West Side Drywall, and Grant Company. What you can expect at next month's board meeting is a focus on policy FEA, which is educational specifications for capital improvements. So we can take a look at that. The preliminary activities to take place in this building to be proposed, the curriculum to be housed in the building, the architectural needs, especially the equipment requirements, space relationships to other facility elements, and accessibility and usability by persons with disabilities. But we will also be prepared to share with you preliminary budget, the preliminary construction calendar, and a thorough question and answer session with you. Questions or comments?
Lots exciting.
Yeah, a lot going on. All good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do any board members have reports to share? Okay, moving on. How are we doing on signups for public comment? Jill? I'm not seeing any. Not seeing anybody, none of the administrative team wants to sign up for public forum. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Thank you for being here, everyone. Action items, so proposed graduation date.
Yes, so there is a strong request for moving graduation from the 17th Saturday of June to the 16th, which is a Friday of June. And when I asked about,
It would be the 9th.
oh, I'm sorry, I was
Right.
looking at the wrong month. I was
I mean,
the
you
wrong
can
week.
keep the seniors
No.
longer than the rest of the kids.
I think I would be the most unpopular person that you can. Julietta, were you starting to panic a little bit over there? I do apologize for that.
That's okay. You're keeping us
Still
on
on
our
the
toes, Rachel. I know what's going on.
Yes, moving it from the 10th to the 9th. Please pardon me for that. The rationale behind that is that it's stressful for both families and students to try and then get 3 activities in a row done in an evening. One is graduation, family celebration, and the district graduation party. And so both students and parents have requested the consideration of this modified calendar.
And Project Grad would be that night, or would it be the next day?
It would be that night.
That night. Can do their celebration.
Any questions that I can answer for you?
What time would graduation be?
That is an excellent question. May I ask Mr. Peterson?
That is an excellent question. I think we decided on 7 o'clock. Get through the dinner hour and start at 7 o'clock. And what that does for us too is it allows a pretty smooth transition from the graduation ceremony into the Project Grad, the grad night party. Instead of having to go home, do some stuff, kill some time, and then come back, allows us to move right into a smooth transition.
Any other questions before we decide to vote? So if someone wants to, as our blue sheets has the script, if someone wants to make a motion.
To approve revisions to the district calendar for the 2022-23 school year.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Right. Next is baseball out-of-state travel.
Yes, so Kevin Moffett has put in a proposal for the baseball team to travel out of state to Arizona during spring vacation, so they're not missing any classroom time. And the funding has already been set aside for that. It's something that they've been wanting for a long time. And my understanding is that this went before the board before COVID So it's coming back for your consideration to approve this request.
I move to approve the request for out-of-state travel for the JFK basketball team in March 2023.
Let's correct that to JFK baseball.
What did I say?
You said basketball,
Oh,
which is on
sorry.
your mind.
JFK baseball, sorry.
Yes.
Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay, Division 22 standards.
Division 22, one of my favorite reports to give annually. Just keeping in mind that the purpose is for districts to report on their compliance with the standards to the community by presenting a report to the school board. The compliance report is for the prior year, not the current year. This annual practice is one way that we can publicly commit to providing a high quality educational experience for students in our care. It also provides an opportunity for school districts to demonstrate compliance with rigorous standards, reflect on areas in need of attention and alignment, and plan for how to address them. By November 1st, district superintendents need to report to their local school board the district's compliance with all Division 22 standards. By November 1st, the school districts must post that community report to their website. And by November 15th, school districts must complete and submit the annual assurances online to the Oregon Department of Education. 2 standards have been waived this year. One is the assessment of essential skills for graduating seniors, and that was also waived last year. The other is the fall kindergarten assessment, which has not been given for the last several years. So those are waived. We have one standard that we are out of compliance in, and that is the standard for physical education requirements at the elementary levels. In your board packet, it does say 180 minutes. It is 150 minutes per week that is required, or 30 minutes a day that is required. Currently, we are not offering that system.
Elementary covers what grades?
K-5.
K-5.
So I will need to be reporting to the state that we are out of compliance. And if you look through the document and you see on the assurances where it says we are not in compliance, which is the blue section, the 6th row, the corrective action is to look at the school's master schedule, revisit it, rework it in an attempt to make sure that we get those 30 minutes in. That'll be our remedy for every day for next year. So that is your Division 22 report.
And Rachel, this is where we had been seeing that we didn't have a media center at the library, and now we're in, I mean, at the high school, and now we're in compliance.
Yes,
Yay.
yes.
So well done.
Something to celebrate.
Yes, I wanted to call that out because that is a good trend to see. Any comments or?
And all of
questions
these
for Rachel?
were from last year,
Yes,
sort of your time, right?
yes.
Okay, so last year we didn't have kindergarten, last year we didn't have enough PE.
And this year we still don't. So for next year, unless we can remedy it at the winter break, which would be a major overhaul, but it's possible, then we would be out of compliance a year from now also, but we can also correct it by next fall for the 2 years from now.
Somebody want to make the motion?
Oh, no. I move to approve the Division 22 assurances for 2021, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Right. And then the Leads Award Resolution. You want to introduce that?
I do.
Rachel?
When I met with each director individually and talked about the possibility of acknowledging students for excellence, it was unanimous that this was something that was very important to everybody. That being the case, this being exemplary and students being our main business client, this is an exciting time. This is something to really celebrate. And when that happens in a board meeting, one way we can celebrate that formally is through a resolution. So a resolution has been put together for your consideration this evening.
And I will go ahead and read the whole thing, because I think it's important, and I appreciate the words that are used here. So, school board resolution, recognition of student excellence, manage a school board, schools board of education. Whereas the students of the Manville School District are our investment in a healthy community and are the primary focus for the board of directors. And whereas students in the Manville School District demonstrate the following attributes and actions: leadership, effort, achievement, diversity and inclusion, service. Now therefore be it resolved that the Manville School District Board of Education shall establish the LEADS Award, providing a formal pathway of public recognition for student excellence. And be it further resolved that the Manville School District Board of Education strongly encourages district staff to join with it in personally recognizing students who demonstrate excellence in leadership, efforts, achievements, diversity and inclusion practices, and service to others. And then if we do go ahead and vote this in, it will be approved by the Manville School District Board of Education, Marion County, Oregon, at the regular open public meeting thereof held on this 10th day of October 2022. So that's the resolution before us.
I move to approve the LEADS recognition of student excellence resolution.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Is the LEADS Awards gonna be like a really public thing, or is it gonna be specifically in board meetings?
Thank you for asking that, Taylor. We want it to also be taking place in the schools, not just during board meetings.
Okay.
But for each school, that may look a little bit different depending on what their assembly schedules are like.
Because I do know that we do awards for like specific teachers. They'll hand out awards at assemblies for like those student did or showed like great progress for anything else. And I've just heard from many students that they feel that a lot of the award, I know that the awards have great meaning behind them and they're meant to encourage students. I've also had a lot of students tell me that they feel very almost inferior because the other kids are getting these awards and they don't feel like it's the same people over and over and over again. Myself getting a lot of those awards makes me feel very uncomfortable because I feel that that's like pushing me to like saying like I am better than the rest of my peers. Not saying it's a bad thing. I just feel like just knowing that these are like big awards. Like
I appreciate the feedback and I want you to know, and in turn, if you could let your peers know, it was really important to me to look beyond leadership and achievement because so often those are what are recognized. So being able to put in effort might be a short-term 1 or 2 month path, but people deserve to be recognized for that. Same for service in ways that we may not be aware of, and certainly for diversity and inclusion and helping others feel welcome and a sense of belonging. So I'm hoping that it's a more well-rounded.
right, having more inclusive towards it, and not just like you're doing great at reading.
But your point is very well taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Any other discussion? Right. It's been moved and seconded, so all in favor? Aye. It passes unanimously. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Discussion items.
All right, so we have one board policy first reading, and it's been updated by OSBA. And the language that's been added is to prohibit school boards from directing superintendents from taking action that conflicts with local, state, or federal laws that apply to school districts. So the recommendation is to apply that OSBA language to current policy and move to a second reading. Any questions?
Doesn't sound like it. And then draft board goals. So this is where Janet, our facilitator, drafted a possibility for what our board goals will look like for this current school year. And if we all just want to take some time and look through it and make sure there's nothing that warrants discussion before we
move it ahead to next meeting, maybe with the final draft for next. Week. So this is our opportunity to look through it, refine it if we need to. And Rachel, you're welcome to weigh in as well.
Thank you.
Because you participated in that work session too. Are we intending to calendar at least 2 to 3 data monitoring work sessions to collaboratively review and discuss with district staff? Seems like did we land on that being like the intention? Because it seems like we're gonna be getting updates on the strategic plan with specific data that we're requesting, and that can be what this is. Just be
Rather than 2 to
sometimes
3 more.
confusing.
I guess my question would be for all of you, knowing that I'm going to be giving quarterly superintendent evaluation reports, knowing that I'm also going to be, those are going to be aligned to the strategic plan, and knowing that the administrators are providing a monthly report based on the 4 priority areas, like what you experienced tonight, maybe take all of that into consideration.
I was wondering about one work session to talk about the data in the strategic plan. I think 2 to 3 is just a bit much. It's just my opinion. I don't know.
Were we intending on that though, that we throughout the year to like checks?
Yeah, and we're gonna be getting reports
True.
regularly on our, during our regular board meetings
Right.
on this data and the strategic plan, with the opportunity to ask questions and get answers. I just think the work session is, we already have agreed to do monthly work sessions. And do we want to commit 2 to 3 of them specifically to this data monitoring piece? Or say we're committing to at least 1 a year, and then we might add more if we can see the. Or do we even need to call out a work session? I don't know. Opinions.
My gut is that we're getting this information anyway via Rachel and the other administrators. This almost seems redundant, like what, unless we see a point where we need to discuss some of this data. I guess I don't.
I see the intent of it is as a board commitment as they want, it's on paper that we're going to do something. And not just rely on Rachel's reports to provide that. I guess that's
Yeah.
the differentiation. Now, she's gonna provide it to us. I agree that that's how it all of it. But I think the intent was to make sure we get something.
And I think this is a best practice that OSB likes sports to do, and
I think that's why if you say at least 1.
I think 1.
I think we could take that 1 out of our.
To at
I
least
think,
one.
and I would like to be able to dig deep in 1 work session during the year on this data. I don't think we need 2 to 3. We might want 2 to 3.
But if you put at
Today,
least
I don't-
one, it leaves it open for more if we
That's
feel
what
like.
I think we commit to 1. I don't know. What do others think? Irene, do you have anything?
You know, I was thinking of a beginning, I see the 3 was the beginning, middle and end.
Right.
And so would you want a beginning and an end? No middle, but you know, I mean, I don't see it taking forever, but I was just kind of like wondering. I know we're gonna get the report, but technically, how do we check it off our bucket list? You know, this is our kind of bucket.
Our commitment.
Our commitment, so how do we check it off? So do we need a beginning? Which it may not take very long and end to see how we did or how we, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Yeah. We're gonna be getting, so let's move to 3. The board will receive 5 to 6 strategic plan updates per year from the superintendent during regular board meetings. Do you want to say, I mean, is that accurate, Rachel, or do you want to say the superintendent and her administrative team? And the administrative team?
And the administrative team.
Yeah.
And I would even go as far as to say monthly.
Yeah,
that
just
we
the
can
board will
provide that
receive
to you.
monthly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There are my reports every month. There are the administrative reports, and then there are my quarterly superintendent evaluation
Yeah,
reports.
so I think if we just change that to monthly,
Monthly,
strategic
okay.
plan updates per year from the superintendent and administrators.
And what I see is what Rachel has done with all of her reporting and the reporting, they have turned that reporting into strategic plan
Yes.
reporting,
Yes.
which
Is,
as evident
like
for tonight's
great
reports
alignment,
were.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's great.
Much different to it.
yes.
And then the board will complete a superintendent evaluation each year by, I don't remember what that date is it February?
February, was it
January,
February or March?
Okay.
March.
Do we do the evaluation by?
I think we did it in February.
We do it in February, it has to be submitted by March.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So there's by this familiar. By March, yeah, so we have to complete, the evaluation has to be completed by March.
Yes.
Yeah, by, so. Yeah, so Rachel, if you just want to check on that.
I will.
We can
Should have done that before the
It's
meeting.
okay. Okay, I'll look too. The board will regularly assess and reflect on their board performance by completing a board self-evaluation annually or by, I think annually is probably good. Yes. Yes, we need to do that. And the board will review their board goals, commitments annually. I know that's a good one. So back to the work session question. And I get, Irene, your point of maybe having one, well, we have one beginning of the school year and end the school year. My thought process is with the strategic plan, we're actually looking 5 years down the road. So, and some of the data is going to be longer term data and some of it's going to be shorter term data. And we're going to be getting updates on some of that data throughout the year at our monthly meetings. So how often to have a dedicated work session on the data. And I get 2, 1, I think 3 is too many. That's my opinion. We could say at least one.
At least one.
And yeah, at least one, and
And
we
we
can
could
decide
have
to do
Open for
more.
a second one.
Yeah. That sound good? Does that language sound all right to people? At least one? And how does everything else read? I think it reads all right, the rest. The introduction's good, goal one, okay, and then. Yeah, so that's it for draft board goals, right?
May I ask a point of clarification?
No, I think we're done. Of course you can.
On number 5, are you giving any consideration to what kind of a self-evaluation you, because we'll have to bring it up in a future meeting then
Yeah.
if we don't.
Well, I know
tackle it tonight.
OSBA has, they have board self-evaluation
Okay.
tools. So that's where I. And we've done them before.
Yeah.
We just haven't done them recently.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's okay to be non-specific there. That gives us room to figure out which tool we want to use. Yeah, good. Did we get everything we needed?
I think so, yes. I believe so.
All right, moving on to draft strategic plan monitor. And this was that table that we worked on together, right? And Rachel, I'm just gonna ask you, how does this look?
I felt, except for a few typos, that it was captured, the conversation was been captured. The very first priority 1, I don't think this was the intent as I was thinking about it. The word enrollment is used as the performance indicator and it's used again as expected results. But I don't think we were really talking about enrollment data. I think we were talking about data by ethnicity or subgroups. And I think maybe,
I think you're right.
Janet may have put in the word enrollment. So that's would be my only question on this document.
And reading through that, I think that's correct. I think
Yeah.
we're talking about the subgroups.
Yeah.
of Students, all that.
Yeah.
So if I were to put subgroup and grade data,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. I didn't find any other areas.
Okay, did you have any more? Any more, Rachel?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I think the rest of them captured everything we talked about.
Yeah, I thought Jeff did a nice job summarizing intentions and whatnot. Irene, what are your thoughts?
You know, I was looking at the first one after enrollment and I'm not sure I like the word eventually, the board would like to track where students are going. Eventually. It's like, what does eventually mean? Does it mean this coming year? Does it mean in 2 years? Does it mean in, you know, or the board will begin to track? I don't know. That's just a word.
I think we had the discussion, didn't we? And we weren't sure when that would start.
Right, but
And I think
eventually.
it's not
like,
currently available, it's a future.
a future, in the future, but
But it's something that we could track after they graduate this year.
We need to figure out a mechanism that we can.
Yeah,
Right.
I see what you're saying. Then we're just kind of.
that word is
Yeah.
kind of like,
We could say by 20, what is it now? By 2024? By 2020, well, 22, 23, 24,
That'd be my senior year.
Next graduate.
the board would
20.
like to track or where
Like
students are
24,
going.
so that would be-
Would that come towards the end of the 2027?
I don't know, but you
Then
know,
that would-
or,
Can we just get rid of the word eventually?
yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
Like,
Start with the board would like to track where students are going, and
yeah, yeah,
we know that
Yeah.
it's not a mechanism
Yeah.
at this point, but
Right,
that'll be
right.
part of the creation of a mechanism.
right, right.
No, I like that. Just, yeah, I agree. Eventually is kind of.
Do you want to keep the words where students are going, or just say the board would like to track post-graduation data?
I think just post-graduation.
Post-graduation.
I
To
think
measure
we use the
student
words
careers.
where students are going, like college or technical school or something that's neither of those. We used those words with her, but I think post-graduation data would just, would cover all those.
To measure student career success.
Yes.
If we had-
Career, yeah,
Because that could be a part of it.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
So yeah, eventually and where,
Because at the
where
end of it,
student are going. That one student are going.
Yeah, just the word.
because it does go on and say we will collaborate to establish this.
Yeah,
Right,
No, I like
established,
that.
So that's,
right.
that all goes together.
that's good. Yeah, that'd be super.
Or-
Anything else catch anybody's attention? Other than the little typos. Okay, I'm looking around the table because that's the end of our agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to say before we adjourn? Okay,
I'm super impressed with the administrators' presentations tonight. They were articulate, they were part of like strategic planning. It was well done by all the administrators.
So it's nice to have a little consistency
Yes,
yeah.
between them. That was nice.
yes,
That format's good.
the format's really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback, and I know they will too, because I'm writing them tomorrow morning.
They worked hard on
Yes.
that,
Yes.
you can tell.
Meeting's adjourned.